Okay, so I think I had a thought earlier about how where I've been the last 12 years, um, not being here, and not knowing which direction my life would go, as opposed to just living it or trying to live it. And I think I was at a point where now I was suffering from mental health issues and whatnot. So this is this is more like my not a comeback. I wouldn't say comeback. I'm starting over. That's what I'm doing. Starting over. And I'm not I think I had to go through some serious changes because I had to deal with mental health issues and coming to the realization that um, I needed to fix my problem, which was my brain. And throughout the years, I didn't know I had a problem. I mean, I had a problem with reading. Excuse me. I had a problem with reading, but never a problem with anything else. At least I didn't think I did. And then a couple years go by. I do okay with a job and apartment and all this other stuff. And I didn't know that I had such a severe mental health issue. Um, it's it's kind of scary. It's not the best experience, but it was an experience. And I went through a period of trying to figure out, okay, what's wrong? What am I doing wrong? Like everything seemed to be working fine, and then all of a sudden it's not working fine. And I thought, well, okay, I have my career choice. It's still going okay, but I'm going from job to job to job to job, and not understanding why I'm going from job to job to job to job. Sometimes it's you know you're either overqualified or you're underqualified, but you have the job, but it doesn't last long, and you can't really upgrade. And we all go through something like that. We all do. I don't care who you are. But in the last couple years, I remember having an accident. I had a chemical accident, and then I I made a conscious decision to, at least I thought I made a conscious decision to go and fill out the form, and of course that never happened. At that point in time, I was thinking, why did I do that? Like why did I make a decision to go fill out an accident report of my condition, of my accident, but then decided they're not necessarily deciding. I just avoided it altogether. It didn't make any sense to me. And it wasn't until I was diagnosed that it made sense. Because clearly I had a psychotic moment. And then what happened was I had actually looked up someone's number, an old number, and an acquaintance of mine, and called them up And what happened? I called him up, said, "Yeah, I have some stuff for you that belong to you." And as far as I knew it, he told me that I should come up, see how he's doing, that sort of thing. And but it was a delusion. With my illness, I have delusions and hallucinations and all kinds of different sensory uh, hallucinations and stuff like that, um, manifestations and many different symptoms come with my illness. And now I'm on my way up there to the city I'm in now, and I get here, and he was like, "Well, what are you doing here?" "Well, you invited me, didn't you?" "Well, as far as I know, you invited me." And it wasn't until another friend that I hadn't seen in 20 years show up, and who is now a police officer, and he was like, "Well, maybe you should get your brain checked." No, actually, that happened shortly after. Excuse me. What happened before was that for some reason I was having cloudiness in my eyes, and I didn't understand what was happening. And I thought, well, maybe I got something in my eye or something like that, maybe an eyelash or something like that. But it was foggy, so whatever I was seeing, I couldn't really see it. And I thought I was going blind. And then, so we go to the hospital to, and I'm dizzy, I'm disoriented, I'm lost. I don't know which way is up. And then go see this doctor at this hospital, and yeah, and then what happened after that was he gave me pills to reduce the swelling, the fluids in my brain, which did work for a little while. And then my illness progressed even more, and it went on and on. And um, I, it was maybe about a week after that I saw the other friend that came by, and the initial friend, we'll call him Ryan, said that I didn't call you to come up here. I really didn't. And I told him, I swear you did. And it was not until the other friend said, "Hey, maybe what you should do is go get your brain checked." Because if I heard one thing and he said something else, that's a delusion. Um, from my understanding, my perception of everything else that goes around me, what's said, what's heard, what's felt, or whatever, is different from what I should be experiencing. So, um, and I wasn't necessarily embarrassed. It was more like lost, not knowing which way to go, not knowing what's happening. Like, I'm not in denial. I mean, with an illness like that, you're not able to determine what's happening. You're not able to make sense of it. Just everybody else is making sense of it, and you're not. And you feel kind of lost. You feel out of place like that. And so, therefore, I'm I'm at a point where it's like, well, how do I fix this problem? how do I go forward with life? It's not a it's not an experience that I want to go through again. Um, because I was literally lost. I could have sworn he said something to me that made sense. It's like, oh well, I haven't seen you in so long, and blah 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 blah. That's usually how it goes. But that's what my brain was telling me, is that he said one thing and clearly he didn't. Um, my relationship with that person is not there anymore. Um, I'm not sure as to why it is that way. I wish I could mend it. I think when some people have an issue with relating with those who have mental illness because there's a stigma there. And I think with him, I think he's not understanding. So, in other words, he's neglected to educate himself with knowing the illness and saying, okay, he obviously had a mental illness and clearly didn't know. And I didn't. Um, I had eventually taken myself to the hospital, and somehow I got to the hospital. No, I took myself to the hospital, and I was having episodes during that time. I believe it was the winter. Uh, and I was probably staying at a shelter at that point. And I mean, there's a lot of gaps between what I remember and what I'm trying to evoke here. So I mean, there's a lot of gaps. So I mean, because mental illness does take away a lot from you. It could take away your family. It could take away your job. It could take away everything, everything that you've worked hard to have, like everybody else. But I think, anyways, back to what I was saying before. Um, I eventually took myself to the hospital, and then I was hospitalized for about 3 weeks, and I was trying to find myself a new place to live. Didn't focus on the job because clearly this was something I had to work at to better myself. Um, I'm not angry per se. I'm understanding that yes, I had a problem and didn't recognize it right away. I wish I had. I wish it happened sooner. Um, but it helped me understand why I couldn't read beyond the grade fourth level. Um, it helped me understand why I couldn't. Clearly, my brain was different. Um, but I'm I'm at a point where it's like I went through so many changes too. Like my brain chemistry just changed. I couldn't get high on marijuana anymore. It gave me a reason to quit. It wasn't was it made no sense to even continue. And then alcohol was made no sense to even continue that either. but I managed to find a gym that I could work out at, and the personal trainer had known me for about 12 years, or at least 5 or 6 years before telling me that, yeah, we clearly knew you had a problem. Um, we didn't say anything to it. We just let you come in and exercise and do all these other activities. Um, I didn't have to worry about paying for anything because they actually assist helping people with disabilities to get back into the workforce, help with a resume, cover letter, that sort of thing. And they believe in wellness as well, as far as exercise and stuff like that, and because it builds self-esteem and whatnot. And I so I'm actually glad I found that place. Um, I was looking for a job through them. They're a nonprofit organization that does help people with disabilities. Um, and how they make their money is through donations, fundraisers and stuff like that. So and grants and whatnot. So, um, but um, I'm I'm trying to remember a lot of the events that went on before I got to the point that I'm at now. Um, like I said, with the reading, I was only reading at a grade 4 level and not a university level. I could understand certain words. I probably didn't know the meanings right away. Um, and then I had I had moments where I was going through not taking my medication all the time because I wasn't used to it because I went through a period. I went through about 30 years of not using medication for anything, not even the littlest thing, not even the headache. Um, but when I mean, I was back and forth, and if I could fix the relationship I lost, I would fix it. But people have a people are funny, I think. I think if they're uneducated, they're not going to want to try and be educated. Like it's like they're having a hard time learning. And but I was understanding. I was not angry. I was okay, this explains a lot. That was my problem. And it explained a lot, and it's not I'm not at a loss for words. I'm I felt empty for a while. I've been depressed, got out of depression without any help, and I just I had to give up a job and hop on disability and try to build my life back to where I wanted it to be. Um, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but I I have I accomplished a lot? No, because of the illness, I didn't. Um, and I was at a point where I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. I wasn't sure if I was going to work again or even live stream. I wasn't sure if I was going to do anything again until I had a conversation with, believe it or not, a chronic liar who happened to live in the building I live in now. He used to live in the building, and basically we talked about people we met, that sort of thing, and I got caught up in that and felt I felt good about it. And even though he's a chronic liar, at the time I didn't know, but I felt good talking about it because it reminded me of how excited I was to be a part of it in the first place. And it just made made life feel good again. You know, you go through a period of ups and downs. We all do. And sometimes we just need a little push. That's all we need. But I'm happy I had the conversation. Because if I didn't have that conversation, I wouldn't be talking to you now. I wouldn't have a computer. I wouldn't be live streaming. I wouldn't be doing anything. I would not at all. But I think I went through a period of self doubt or uncertainty because I just felt empty inside. I was on the fence about getting back in the swing of things. And it was I think it was the following day I saw this book. I don't know what prompted me to read it, but I read it, and I read the whole book without my eyes jumping the page. And it's like I had an epiphany. I could do this again. I could start up my career again. This time it's a little different because now I can read fluently at a university level. So it's like, you know, how it's just, it's one of those things, I mean, I, but right now I have a bit of a dilemma. Um, it's a family issue actually, but I'm going to share it with you. I, um, I met, my niece and nephews, um, unfortunately, at my mother's funeral, and I hadn't seen them in like 15 years for whatever reason. I don't know. Was it me? Was it my family? I don't know. Maybe life got in the way, and but who doesn't s- take 5 minutes out of their day to say, "Hey, man, you're a part of my family. Let's hang out." Anyhow, um, I met them, and one of them, my nephew Chris, who is in his 20s, took an interest in me and found out that I had a mental illness and wanted to know more. And I thought, this is great. And I'm thinking to myself, he wants to know without the fact that I hadn't seen him in 15 years, regardless of that. He wants to know who I am. This is good. And he wanted my number, but for some reason I didn't give it to him. Um, I think we were in a rush to get back to my house in Ottawa, and he lives in Toronto, so it's only 4 hours away. But I mean, I could take the train and go see him and all that sort of stuff. But there's a bit of a hiccup, and it has to do with his father. Now, when I first brought up the illness, told my family that I had this illness, my siblings that I had this illness, um, I'm thinking they're gonna educate themselves and all this sort of stuff, and and they neglected to do so. Especially my oldest brother, who I don't know. I I'm kind of heartbroken about it because he is the most educated. He went to university. He's I kind of lost about it because it's such a painful thing to go through when your own family doesn't want to educate themselves on the illness so that they can better protect themselves, so they can better protect me. And I don't know, it's just hard. It's hard to go through that. Not not having that support, you know. But yet, this young kid who I haven't seen in 15 years wants to know who I am. And I tell him, I said, well, yeah, I had the delusions and hallucinations and all sort of stuff. And he was just talking to me like he knew me forever, you know, which tells me that he is pretty adversed in the knowledge of mental illness. Maybe they teach it in school these days. I don't know. But he was curious. He wanted to know me. And that felt really good. But knowing that my his father chose to not educate himself and his family, it's trying because it's like, well, I don't really know them, you know? I mean, I know of them, but I don't know them. I don't know my siblings. I like I said, mental illness takes a lot from you. I mean, it takes away your memories, it takes away your energy, makes you sleepy. By the time you're stable, you're sleeping often. And I slept often. I'm anyways, I had this argument with my brother and gave him all the information on my illness and whatnot. And it's been about 2 weeks, and I still haven't heard from him. So I'm I'm hoping that he took in consideration that leaving home the first time wasn't my fault, because it wasn't. I wasn't in control. It was beyond for him not to be able to comprehend that is just it's inexcusable. It really is. Because as educated as he is, he seems very stupid. I, you know, he just does. And if you're watching, please like and subscribe. Tune in because this is about me rebuilding my life, starting over. And even though I'm at 50, I'm that much closer because I've already started rebuilding my life. I'm just giving you a heads up of who I am and where I came from and what I've gone through. I think it's important for everybody to educate themselves on mental illness, regardless of learning this in school, whether it's part of the curriculum or not. But um, I think everybody should, regardless of where you are in the world or what your status is in the world. Um, I've even looked at the symptoms. Read. I am somewhat knowledgeable in that area. So, But I think living with the illness is can be a bit of a challenge. Some of us say no, 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 we're delusional, and choose to not take our medication or go through our therapy, and it affects us on our everyday life. Um, but I chose to take my medication. I chose to um, see my shrink, who I no longer see, because I didn't necessarily have a problem. I had a problem with just the mental illness part. I didn't have a problem trying to get back in the saddle and ride off into the sunset. So I mean, I'm so certain events have happened to inspire me to get back in the field of mainstream entertainment. I've met with new friends in the business, and start from the independent circuit, and then most likely go towards mainstream. So where I was before, I didn't get far, probably because I couldn't read at a great university level. So um, and I've done okay financially, but you know, um, there's always a hurdle somewhere, always bound to be. Um, I'm hoping to really grow from this. I'm hoping to I'm hoping to I don't know, I guess inspire other people to educate themselves on mental health. Um, Granted, you may be normal and you don't have a problem. I get that. And you don't feel like you need to. There are people out there that can help. But what I'm saying is that if you educate yourself on the illness itself, or many illnesses, then you are not only protecting yourself, you're protecting your family, you're protecting your community, you're protecting everybody. And if everybody's educated on mental health, then we all succeed in life, I think. I think we all gain a better perspective on because I mean depression is I mean we all there's a lot of us who are probably still depressed and never sought the help they needed, um, and they really should. I I think talking about it puts me in a different demographic altogether. If people want to ask me questions on it, I have no problem answering. Um, I'm pretty much an open book these days. I'm not closed off. I'm just I'm just lost when it comes to my family, because I mean it's hard because in one aspect I knew them, but as far as I could tell, I was delusional all that time. So I really don't know them. It's not a hmm, yeah, I don't know. I'm I it's it can be difficult. It can be. Um and doing these streams have not necessarily been a challenge. They're more of I'm not using YouTube in a sense of want to be famous or anything like that. It's more like a diary kind of deal. So I mean it's not um so I guess I'm letting you into my world, what I went through, what I had to go through, what I am going through to get to the point where I want to be at, as opposed to just putting on an act and being silly on camera. So but that's most of my journey. If I left something out, I apologize. Um, certain things don't make sense. I apologize. You can ask me questions afterwards, and but don't forget to like, subscribe, and share and comment. Um, I would love to connect with people on here, and people can relate with me a little bit more. Would be nice, and go from there. Um, what is there left to do except say thank you for tuning in, and hopefully see you next time. So until next time.